How does the ICF know that you are listening to your client? And more importantly, how does your client know that you're really listening to them? Today, we're going to begin looking at the two portions of the ICF competencies, the International Coach Federation coaching competencies of active listening and building trust and intimacy, overall the relationship with the client. This video is particularly looking at building your skills and abilities around active listening. And it's an interesting competency because it is the most difficult to measure in terms of what the coach is doing with the listening. You can't exactly measure what the coach is hearing directly. We can only measure what the coach is hearing indirectly. And so we'll see with the competencies we're going to look at here, there's two categories. There is actually what the coach is doing that demonstrates listening directly, which is, well, we'll see that in just a second. It's really basic. And then there's 6 competencies that are the indirect measures of the coach and their ability to listen deeply to the client. Let's start with number 7, though. You got 7 competencies. We're going to start with number 7, though, because it's the most basic. It's the easiest one to begin practicing and the most important. We'll have an entire video on how do you do listening, and it starts with being quiet. And it sounds ridiculously simple. It sounds like the most obvious thing that a person would do. But when you think about the relationships you have and the conversations you have with people on a regular basis, it is very rare that you or others are being quiet. They give space. When you're in a conversation and there is 3 seconds of silence, it feels like an eternity. It feels like it's forever. And in a coaching conversation, it needs to be at least 3 seconds of silence most of the time before a coach asks the next question or goes on to the next observation. We want to create space, and the coach is also not jumping in to interrupt the client. We are offering a space to think. And it's one of those things where I always joke with people. I don't know how to describe my work with my family, my parents especially. I'm paid to not talk to a person. But honestly, as a coach, you are paid to not speak to the person when their mind is working. So there's going to be more on that with a future video, multiple videos on how to build the muscles of active listening in silence. But for now, we'll just leave it at that. That's the direct measure of success with active listening. But there's 6 more measures of success that we'll look at here today that are the indirect measures of success. Now, these 6, and when an assessor has a recording from a coach and they're looking at how does this person really listen to their client, they're looking at all the inputs that a coach offers. And that's why our training organization looks at every single input of a coach, because each of those inputs, a question, an observation, any example of direct communication, all of these are going to tell a story about the competency, about the skills of that coach and what is going on in their mind when they are offering that input, that observation or question. So with each observation, with each question a coach is offering, we want to see a variety of these things. Now, there's a lot. Don't be overwhelmed. I mean, it's a lot at first, but we do want to build ourselves towards all of these being demonstrated in a coaching session. So let's look at these. Number 1, marker of success with active listening, there's a customization of the questions and observations that are being offered by the coach. Now, this one marker summarizes the other 5. So again, you have 1 through 6 are around coach inputs, and 7, you're just listening. So number 1 is it's like the umbrella that covers 2 through 6. And the reason I highlight that is every single input from a coach it's not always going to happen, but it ought to have some elements from what the client has offered. All coach recipes, for instance, if we see every question or observation as a recipe that the coach is putting together, we're going to bake this cake, we're going to bake this lovely dessert, whatever it's going to be, because it needs to be a dessert, and we're going to offer it to our client in form of a question or observation, we better have plenty of client ingredients in our thing, or the client's going to not like the flavor of it. It's going to be foreign. Not foreign food's not bad. It's going to be odd to them, foreign to their palate, so to speak. So all of the things we bake into our coaching sessions through our questions and our observations, they need to have client ingredients. So marker number one, there's customization of questions and observations based on the client's identity and what they've shared about who they are, what they've shared about their situation. And now let's look at ways in which that happens. Marker number two, questions and observations, but especially the things that the coach is asking about, need to incorporate the client's language. You'll often see, and you'll even see in this training organization, plenty of lists of questions. But if a coach just takes a list of questions and never adjusts those, and we talked about, putting them into a coaching algebra or powerful questioning algebra, where you're like, okay, this template question is here, but we need to add a variable of the client's language. If a coach never does that, then it sounds like the coach is just disconnected. They aren't hearing me because I've said these things and just something's not clicking. But as soon as the coach rolls in the client language into their questions and observations, it just feels great. It feels great. It feels like that person is with them. It feels like the coach is there. They are adding value. It's very similar to comedy, stand-up comedy. The best comedians, they don't go through a script. They take the scripting that they have, because they're always doing the same act, a variety of acts, but they have the same set, multiple sets to use. But they've done that set maybe hundreds of times. But the best comedians roll in interaction with the audience to say, "I'm here." If a person has a funny laugh, if someone in the audience is wearing a certain bit of clothing, or there's just some sort of reaction to that person over there in the back, they bring that experience that's happening right here in the moment into the set. A coach does a very similar thing to show that I am here with you. I'll bring something from you into my set. It might be a question I've asked in a variety of ways, but I'm asking it to you with your language to show that I'm hearing you. So if you are talking about your relationship with your boss, using words like fear or hesitation or worry, I'm not going to use similar words to that like anxiety. I'm going to say things like fear and worry. I'm going to use those same words into my question. So that's number two, and we'll go through these kind of faster as we go now. The next one, number three, we explore and we ask questions about the emotions that are being demonstrated in a session. Imagine that you are having a conversation with a friend, and as you're talking, they suddenly burst into tears. And you're talking about maybe a favorite experience in your life. And instead of saying, "Wow, what's going on that's making you tear up here? What's happening? It seems like you're sad. What's going on for you in this moment?" I mean, you don't necessarily say it like that. That's a very coaching way to say it. But to glaze over the fact that your friend is crying in front of you over something that doesn't exactly make sense why they're crying, like, we need to go there. We need to ask about it. Otherwise, it feels like we're just kind of disconnected. And a coach who's being paid to connect with their client, they need to go there. We don't amplify emotions. We can talk about that in future training. We don't seek to amplify it, make it more extreme and more, if there's sadness being expressed, we don't want that sadness to build, but we do want that person, the client, to be able to express what's going on in their mind around that sadness. What is their heart right now, so that we can factor that into the coaching. So we'll ask about what's present in this session with their emotions. Next, we explore the client's expressiveness, maybe their tone, maybe their pace, maybe just a slight inflection in a word that would normally have no particular meaning, but the way they said Yeah, I'm real happy. Well, it doesn't sound like you're very happy. So we need to ask, wow, the way you just said happy was like, that didn't sound very happy. What do you mean by, yeah, I'm happy? I'm with them. I hear them. I hear not only what words they've said, I'm not just using their language, but I'm noticing and exploring the inflection, their tone, their pace with observations and with questions. And we explore the client's behaviors. I am just super nervous about making this video, wondering if anyone's going to like it. So I'm rubbing my neck. Or I'm really excited about making this video, so I'm bouncing on my feet. Whatever it is that the client is doing, maybe they're creating an earthquake with their knee. I don't know if that's showing up on the video at all. Maybe they're just so excited or nervous, they're shaking their knee. You've seen it. You do it yourself in a meeting. Pick up on those things, explore them. Hey, what's the earthquake about? You just play with what's happening in the moment, because those things that a client says, the way they say it, the emotions behind what they say, and the behaviors that they use to express what they're saying, all of this is data and information that is speaking about the deeper person that's in the room with me, the deeper version of the client, what they are really experiencing and feeling, even if they didn't know that they were rubbing their neck, even if they didn't know that they were scratching their hair and making a mess of their hair. We noticed, and asking about it, offering observations in a way that's not overly picking them apart, but just like, wow, what are you doing? I noticed you did this with your neck. Like, what's that about? Or what about, it's as you're bouncing on your feet here, or as you're moving your knee so fast, I personally get the sense that you're really excited. What's the excitement about? Or what's that excitement tell you about how important this topic is to you? Hey, coaches, this is Brian from the future, as they say. I just realized as I was editing this video that I completely skipped over marker number 6 in the markers for success for active listening. So markers 2 through 6 are an unpacking of marker number 1, where we are customizing our questions and observations. And we do this in 5 ways. The 6th marker of success here is we customize our questions and observations as coaches by implementing the client's perception, their perspective, the way they are seeing themselves and their world, the way they understand themselves and their situation, and the way they're expressing those things within a coaching session. So it's in many ways similar to a client language, but it's honing in just a little bit more into the, as they say, kind of the glasses that the client is wearing within a coaching session. We want to put those glasses on ourselves and in a way, empathetically, as we're asking our questions, color those questions with the way the client is seeing their world. This is really taking into account the metaphors they use to express how they see themselves, how they see their situation, how they see their relationship with their loved ones or their direct reports or their manager, the way they see the world of their company, the culture of their company. We want to take those things into account as we are asking our questions and observations or offering observations. So again, 5 ways of customizing our coaching inputs, questions, and observations. We use the client's language. We explore the presenting emotion. We explore the client's tone, pace, inflection, the way they're communicating. We explore the way they're behaving in a session, and we explore the way they see their world, their perception and perspective in our coaching questions and observations. Let's get back to the rest of it. We'll talk more about how to roll these things into a coaching conversation, but the more you do this, the more you build your recipes of questions and observations by using client ingredients, the better the baked good, the better the dessert, the better the coaching session, the better the coaching relationship. And that's why the ICF measures the success of active listening based on these inputs, the questions and observations of a coach. You might hear this, you might get to where you've reviewed this video and you know these things, but this is a wonderful example of The only way a coach grows in active listening is by constant practice and feedback. The coach is present for the client and is able to make observations and ask questions that take into account what's happening in the room. But when you sit down with a mentor coach or someone who's offering you feedback, you as a coach, you realize, wow, there were so many other things that I could also bring in. And that's where real learning happens, when you're practicing and getting feedback around something that's oftentimes felt, it feels very subjective. What is active listening? How do you measure it? This is how you measure it. These markers of success. I hope this is helpful. Keep coaching. Thank you for tuning in.